Hey book lovers, my name is Em and I want to talk about books. And cats. Hey book lovers, so today I have another special episode for you. This one is an interview with another podcaster, Cat Soul, who is a co-host of the Kill the Cat podcast. I know I've mentioned their podcast before. I absolutely love it. They discuss writing from the perspective of movies and TV shows, and every episode is super well researched, and they have a really nice rapport. The conversation just flows really smoothly. It's a great podcast. I highly recommend you check out Kill the Cat podcast. Anyway, Kat and I found each other on Instagram. I was so excited. Like I said, I really enjoy their show. I was also really nervous leading up to it. Kat lives in Sydney, and I am in the northeast of the United States, so I ended up interviewing her at 1 o'clock in the morning, which is not a huge problem, because my massive anxiety definitely had me wide awake. But it was a great conversation. She is super nice, really easy to talk to, and very interesting. Kat is a screenwriter, a script editor, and author, in addition to being the co-host of the Kill the Cat podcast. And yeah, it was just a really interesting conversation. And I hope you enjoy my chat with Cat Soul. So welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I've been listening to your podcast for, I think I found you maybe 3 or so weeks ago, and I've been binging it, and I've been really, really enjoying it.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I absolutely love your podcast. I think I've been listening to it for probably like a month or so at this point, but I binged most of them pretty much as soon as I started listening.
Thank you.
So I guess first, do you want to tell us about yourself? Just kind of some background?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Cat Soul. I'm a screenwriter and a script consultant, and I am the co-host and one of the producers of a screenwriting and filmmaking podcast called Kill the Cat, with my co-host Ibrahim Faraj. Me and Ibby met film school. I think it's 5 years ago now, which is a bit scary. But we went to Sydney Film School together, which is how we met.
Oh, okay.
We've worked on several films and scripts and a couple of web series together. We work really well together. And at one point, we decided to actually do like a video essay channel, like lessons from the screenplay or every frame of painting. Began that. Quickly found we didn't like video essays very much, but we had all this research that we'd done for them. So Ibby suggested that we do a podcast instead, and that's how Kill the Cat was born. And I think we've been doing it about a year and a half now.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. And so it's once a month, right?
Yeah, it's once a month. We find because we do research our episodes very in-depth. And also because we're busy people who are paid for this podcast, we found once a month is a doable target for us.
Yeah, you guys definitely do a deep dive on your episodes. Do you have a way that you choose what movies you're going to talk about, or like what the theme's going to be?
Yeah, so when we started this, we decided that we wanted to break down our own personal film canon. So we didn't really want to talk about things like The Godfather or Chinatown or Casablanca, which are these famously amazing scripts, but they've just been talked about so often. So we wanted to do things like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and we have one coming up on like The Emperor's New Groove. We have one on the movie Enchanted with Amy Adams, and just movies that like really inspired us in our filmmaking careers. There isn't really a big process of how we pick them. Essentially, we just, if we see something, if we watch something, we'll be like, hey, what about this? We'll fire it off to the other person. If they think there's an episode in there, we'll just go for it. And we only pick TV shows or movies that we have something original to say about, is our rule.
Oh, okay. I love the selection so far. Like, it's pretty much all of my favorite movies and shows. So.
Okay.
So I guess the episode that I got kind of hooked on your show was the episode about the platform, that Netflix movie, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And that had to do with the idea of building dread, which I have to say, like, I hadn't really considered before. I like listening to your podcast because I love writing. I'm very interested in it, but I don't know a ton about writing for movies. And so it's interesting to hear, like, how you apply these things to, like, film.
Yeah, so the platform was Ibby's idea to talk about dread. For people who may be unfamiliar with this film, it was pushed very heavily on Netflix early 2020, which was an interesting time because the movie is all about distribution of resources and greed, and that was right at the beginning of the pandemic and lockdown when people were, like, panic buying and stuff.
Yeah.
Premise of the platform, I always recommend this movie very cautiously because it's a fantastic movie, but it's very intense.
Yeah.
So the people in it are in this vertical prison called The Hole. And there's 2 people on every floor. We're told there's 200 floors, and there's a platform of food that goes through the middle of the prison every single day, and you get to eat what you want from it, but you're eating all the people's above you's leftovers.
Yeah.
Because the people at the very top are greedy, the people at the bottom starve. So that's the setup of the platform.
Yeah, I found that very interesting, especially, like, right at the beginning of quarantine is kind of when I think a lot of people were watching it. It seemed very on the nose.
Yes.
So I just listened to your newest episode, the Matrix one, and I thought that was excellent as well. I love the comparisons you were making with 1984, and you said that was your, like, a high school project?
Yeah, that was, like, my final English project in high school. I took, like, The Matrix in 1984 and used that to talk about, like, free will and determinism. So it was really fun. I don't think I'd really seen The Matrix since then, so it's about 10 years ago now, give or take. So, yeah, coming back to it and rewatching it and realizing that it's still held up as one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
That is cool. I haven't watched that movie in a very long time, and I should definitely revisit that one. So do you have a favorite episode of your podcast so far that you've done, or like a top 3?
Top 3. It's a difficult one. Let me have a think. I would definitely say we've gotten better as the podcast goes on. So every time I hear a new episode, I'm like, this is my favorite episode.
Yeah.
I do really like the Matrix one, probably because it's fresh, but I also think, like, we had some really, really good points in there. And for context, we talked about dialogue, which I know that people don't often always think of the Matrix and think, oh, like, that movie has amazing dialogue. But just, like, the layers they pack into simple lines. So we talked about one in there. There's a line where Morpheus has just woken up after being reborn, and he says, "Why did my eyes hurt?" And Morpheus says, "Because you've never used them before." So, for example, that's 2 lines of dialogue, but it's giving us, like, physical exposition about what's going on with Morpheus's body. He's just come out of the vat. It's talking about the themes of, like, we don't see the Matrix all around us, and Neo is finally, like, opening up his eyes. And then it's also Plato's allegory of the cave.
Yeah.
That person left the cave and then their eyes hurt. So there's just so many lines there that are working on so many levels, which once I got into, I just found really fascinating. And I really like that stuff. I've been listening to your Feelers.
Oh, thank you.
I'm really enjoying it. Like, that stuff is right up my alley.
Oh, thank you so much. I did see that you like to write kind of like sci-fi type stuff. Is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely. Back in the day, I was very into, like, I want to write stuff like The Matrix and The Hunger Games. I've come a little away from that. I think doing a creative partnership with Ibby, we tend to do a lot of comedy. Mm-hmm. So comedies kind of became my thing. But I do still like writing sci-fi, and horrors as well has been a kind of recent fascination of mine as a genre.
Writing a horror movie must be, like, kind of complicated because it seems so simple, but I'm guessing that it's more complicated to put something that looks simple together.
Well, we had a bit of discussion. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, of, like, is the platform a horror movie? Yeah,
I'm not sure about that, because it is definitely horrific in places, and it's it's gruesome, but there's just so much more to it, you know? Like the standard horror movie, I always think like slasher movies, you know, like Halloween or Friday the 13th or something, you know?
Which can be fun. I think, like, when I say I want to write horror, I think the ones that come to me now are things like A Quiet Place.
Yes.
And Get Out, and kind of like these really, I've heard it like referred to as highbrow horror. I think it's a little bit of a problematic term, but that's the best one I have for now. Of like highbrow horror that's been coming out that's just better written than the usual slasher film.
Yeah.
Not that I have anything against slasher films, they're super fun.
It does seem like there's a lot more like almost psychological horror movies now, or just something with a twist. It seems like everything has like a twist now at the end. I don't know.
Shyamalan.
Yeah, exactly. So do you have a favorite genre of movie? Is it mostly just horror and comedies, or?
Like, not off the top of my head, I would be like, I love certain kinds of movies. I am very big into like the Marvel thing that's going on.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I like superhero movies because it's mostly Marvel.
Yeah.
And MCU. There are exceptions to that, like The Dark Knight and Logan and stuff. But no, I've been super invested in Marvel for a few years now. I'm loving all their TV shows. WandaVision.
Oh, it's so good.
That's the thing. Yeah. I loved WandaVision. It was so weird. I was down for it.
Yeah. So one thing that I like to ask people that I interview is, do you have a favorite book or piece of writing that really like was meaningful to you in some way?
Dude, I brought it with me, even though this is a podcast, but we're on a Zoom call. I'll show you the cover.
Oh, wow.
So this is a book called Welcome to Night Vale by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Craner. So Welcome to Night Vale is probably my favorite piece of media that currently exists. It started off as a fiction podcast, and it's primarily a fiction podcast about a small desert community where every conspiracy theory is true. And that's gone on to, they've now had 3 novelizations. So I've read this one twice. I'm halfway through the second one, which is called It Devours. You can read the books without ever listening to the podcast.
Oh, wow.
Although I fully recommend the podcast. And it's set up as a community radio show.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's very weird. It's kind of somewhere between a black comedy satire and a horror. I think they've been going for about 8 years now.
Oh, wow. That is...
But yeah, and they write a bunch of podcasts, and what I kind of like about them is you can't really put them into a genre. There's like a lot of things going on at once. Like I said, Night Vale, kind of a horror, kind of a comedy, there's drama, there's romance.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Little bit of everything. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I have not heard of that, but I will definitely check that out. That sounds like something I would enjoy.
Yeah, they wrote one called Within the Wires, which, again, gave me, like, Feelers vibes.
Oh, nice.
It's also set in, like, a dystopian mental institution.
Ooh.
Well, the first season is.
Yeah.
And they do it in the form of relaxation tapes.
Oh, interesting. That's awesome.
Yeah,
yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
All the Night Vale Presents podcasts are wonderful.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. That's great. Do you have any other projects you want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned that Ibby and I collaborate quite a lot, and we've done some... we talk about films a lot, but we also make them.
Mm-hmm.
So recently we did a web series called Codependent. So that's a 4-part comedy web series. It looks like a lockdown project, but we shot it before lockdown, just because it's all set in my house with the people who at the time lived in my house, and we wrote it like for us to act out.
Yeah.
It's 4 episodes. It's a comedy. It stars Bernie Van Thiel and Emma Horn, who are doing very well in the acting Australian industry.
Oh, cool.
On YouTube, my YouTube channel is just Cat Soul. Ibby also has a YouTube channel called Ibrahim Faraj, and he has his shorts up there, so just going to plug both our YouTube channels.
Oh, yeah,
there.
fantastic.
Check those out.
I'll put those in the show notes for the episode, too. So, other than your YouTube channel, is there anywhere else people can find you and your projects?
Yeah, absolutely. Kill the Cat podcast. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on pretty much every podcasting platform. We have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram. I'm quite active on Instagram. That's how we met.
Yep.
And it's actually going to have a podcast too. That's quite fun. Yeah, and then as Cat Soul Scripts, that's kind of my handle. I'm, again, on Instagram, on Facebook. I am on Twitter. I don't go on Twitter very often.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Twitter.
Not my thing,
yeah.
but I have one. So that's generally where people can find me.
Awesome. I guess the last thing I wanted to ask you is, how did you guys come up with the Kill the Cat name?
So I just saw your cat behind you, and she's very cute.
Oh, yeah.
She's very cute.
Oh, she's being extra cute right now.
Yeah, so one of the most famous screenwriting books out there, like Screenwriting 101, the most basic, is called Save the Cat by Blake Snowden. So we wanted to do something a little bit different with our screenwriting advice. Like I said, we only do books and movies, movies and TV shows where we feel like we have something original to say that hasn't been covered before.
Right.
So we changed it from Save the Cat to Kill the Cat, and then my name is Cat, so it's a play on my name. So that is why it's called Kill the Cat.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, thank you so much for being on the show. This was great.
It was fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, book lovers. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Cat Soul. Among other things, Cat also has a really great YouTube channel, and I watched Codependent. It is 4 episodes long, and it follows the lives of 4 creatives living in a house together. Carmen is a vlogger, and she's convinced that she's on her way to stardom. She's the newest roomie and is super excited about living with other creatives and doing the starving artist thing, even though I don't think she really has any clue what that actually entails. She's very sweet and bubbly and just so funny. One of the other roommates is named Bernie. She is a rapper, beatboxer, and currently acting in a web series. Then there's also Adrian, who is all about fitness and drinks chickpea smoothies. Gross. Things seem pretty easy for him, and he is a very chill, happy, easygoing character. Then there is Cat, who is played by Cat Soul, and she is the kind of mysterious, dark character who just appears at random times in the series but doesn't really speak and just looks intimidating and scary. The one thing she does say is absolutely hilarious. I'm not going to give it away, but it's super funny. Cat's character tends to show up at the end of the episodes, and her scenes are just so good. The first episode is an introduction to the characters, and it includes the line, "the cultural poltergeist," which I just found hilarious. The second episode is a group hangover, which pretty much takes Adrian out completely. He spends the whole episode just kind of laying in the driveway. They also wake up to find that they have no furniture, and there are cryptic messages about Carmen's newest vlog, which she can't remember posting, and Bernie also thinks that she might have confessed her feelings for her co-star, Emma. And she's kind of nervous about that. Episode 3 is majorly focused on Pitch Perfect, and it's just so funny. They're supposed to be fixing up the house for an inspection, but there really isn't much cleaning going on. It's excellent. And in episode 4, it is time for the house inspection, and Carmen has the house totally ready until the roomies bring home a party. And things kind of go off the rails from there. I don't want to spoil anything because I'm hoping that you will check it out. There is a link to Kat's YouTube channel in the show notes, and I highly recommend watching her 4-episode series, Codependent. So for this week's quote of the week, I decided to take a quote from episode 3 of Codependent. It's when Adrian is trying to learn the cup song from Pitch Perfect, and he says, "It's good to be challenged. It's like a workout for your brain." That made me laugh so hard. Loved it. That's all for this special episode. I will be back next week with more books and cat stuff, including a new chapter of Heart of the Storm. Be sure to check out the Kill the Cat podcast, as well as the YouTube channels of both Cat and Ibrahim, the co-hosts of the Kill the Cat podcast. All of the links can be found in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, keep reading.